Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and as of Tuesday, the Deadshot build is getting nerfed. I've been trying to pay attention to this one closely, and while I am not able to play on the actual update on Tuesday since I'm recording this on a Monday, I've been paying attention to all these sims, and it doesn't look that Deadshot is going to be all that strong. Hell, the 5% nerf to Outlaw in general is actually looking a bit bigger than I expected. Where I'm usually hanging out are about 13.8k DPS. Tomorrow, or as of Tuesday, I am doing about 13.3k DPS. Which for me seems like a pretty big number, but for most of you guys, you won't really even notice it. Now, let's talk about a brand new build that I've been trying to cadaver together. This one I had to basically pick up from scratch. Had to combine together a few pieces of gear. In Warfront, I was able to get a 370 Snake Eyes headpiece. So then the whole website told me, hey, if you go deeper strat, and you will sim for a fairly high number. So we're going to be talking about today's video, which is a deeper strat gem Snake Eyes build. That's all about roll the bones playstyle. It is probably the most difficult rotation I've ever had to pick up, but the damage numbers themselves are very competitive to the Deadshot build. It is way far from being a brain dead build and especially strong within PvP. But in PvE, it's a build that has a lot of varying damage. The damage goes up and down very quickly, and the playstyle is more methodical rather than spammy. So let's dive into this build and I'll show you guys everything that I was able to get so far for the rotation and the playstyle. Alright, let's talk a bit about the talents. What are you going to want to run for this type of build? For my talents, in the first row, we're going to want to go quick draw. We are going to be using pistol shot as part of our rotation. This is why quick draw is useful. It gives you an extra common point for your pistol shot and 50% more damage to keep the rotation going. This ability is actually going to be pretty integral because we do need finishers, and having to go for Weapon Master, it's only a slight upgrade. It's like a 10% chance to increase your damage, but I simmed both of those and quick draw ends up coming out on top. Also, it just feels really good when you put the whole build together. In a level 30, it doesn't matter what you go for. I generally stick with acrobatic strikes for majority of the damage that I put out as a rogue, and I like acrobatic strikes. I've been using acrobatic strikes for a while for any PvE situation, so that one is a good one to stick with. At level 45, this is where we actually are going to take a look at Deeper Strat. Deeper Strat is simming to be the best option against Vigor. They're very close, but Deeper Strat, I noticed when you play with this playstyle, it's a lot easier to manage and see combo points. With how many combo points you'll get out of quick draw, getting 5 combo point run throughs is a lot easier, and if you can get to 6 combo point Snake Eyes rerolls, which is what you want to aim for because that will increase your damage. Overall, you're going to notice your playstyle is going to be a little bit slower, but it just simply means that you cannot make a mistake. But you can kind of see the abilities coming at you, and it's really difficult to kind of mess them up as long as you know the rotation. So as long as you're pressing the right buttons when they come at you, when you get the energy to use abilities, you should be doing top deeps. And there have been moments where I found myself just overdrawing too much energy with Vigor, and it feels like I'm firing off abilities trying to keep up with damage. With Deeper Strat, as long as you're hitting it every single time accurately, your rotational combo, then you should be good to go. Level 60 doesn't matter what you run. Level 75 is utility, doesn't matter what you run. Level 90 Alacrity is going to be the one we will want to go for. The extra haste we will get out of this will increase our energy regen, which is going to be necessary for Deeper Strat. Technically, you can go slice and dice with this build, but you know you're going to do less damage. So it's not the best option because we are not going to be spamming 5 Sinister Strikes into a reroll. We're actually going to be using finishers, so having extra haste with Alacrity, especially for our damage, is going to be necessary. At level 100, Blade Rush ends up being the option you want to bang for. It will give you extra energy from time to time, and you can use it kind of... Basically, the way you would use Blade Rush is you would use maybe Blade Rush and then do the full 5 compound rerolls. So the energy regen will start flooding you, so it'll be easier to get those Sinister Strikes out, but you can use this ability on cooldown. It's very awesome, provides good damage, single target or AoE, and I feel like even in heavy AoE situations, this is a really good ability to go for, particularly in this build. When it comes to gear, of course, you're going to want to get 3 pieces of Azerite gear, whether from dungeons, world quests, or warfronts, that have the Snake Eyes trait. If you can get Heat Might Call as a secondary trait in the second circle, then you should be able to get a little bit extra oomph damage out of it. Outside of that, as long as you have those 3 traits, you're good to go. There's actually a couple different playstyles with just one stacking a Snake Eyes build, but triple stacking completely radically change your playstyle. In terms of stats, you should of course sim your character, but as per usual, you should at least get 1000 haste on your gear. Try to avoid mastery as much as possible, and currently, for me at least, critical strike and versatility are both ahead when it comes to damage increases. So the way I'd go for is haste until about 1000, then crit is slightly ahead of versatility but not by much, and at the very bottom would be the pits of hell, and right under those pits of hell would be mastery. Try to avoid mastery as best as you can. Let's talk about the rotation. The rotation itself is very free-flowing, and it's very difficult to explain exactly how to pin down the rotation, how to figure out where to go. The rotation is going to go like this. You're going to first build common points, then get yourself a roll for buffs. The buff is going to increase your next 5 Sinister Strikes damage. Between that, you're trying to throw out only as many Sinister Strikes as necessary for the damage increase, and fill the rest of the void with pistol shots. Then you're going back to building up common points with pistol shots and Sinister Strikes, trying to get a finisher. When it comes to your finisher, you're trying to get either 5 or 6 common points for dispatch, or if you have deadly precision as you buff from the time that you rolled, try to get a between the eyes. After that, you go back to building, and then you're trying to get a hopefully a 6 common point reroll, but there's some aspects where you might want to go for a 5. And then you do that over and over and over. So then your rotation is going to vary very drastically depending on what buffs you have. In some moments you will have broadsides that let you build more common points, or skull and crossbones that might let you build your Sinister Strikes faster. Let's talk about the changes to the rotation. When does the rotation ever change, and what are some of the aspects to it? So when you're going by the logic of build common points and hitting yourself at roll the bones, if this is not your first time going around in a circle, if it's like your second or third, this is the part where it's going to depend on how many common points you're going to end up rolling into a roll the bones. And there's a couple different conditions, whether you want to roll for 5 common points or 6. Generally, every time you use roll the bones, you want to roll at 6 common points. At 6 common points roll the bones, it makes your next 5 Sinister Strikes do even more damage than if they would at 5 common points. Although there are a few conditions where it's worth going for 6 common points. Here are the conditions. If you find yourself at 5 common points and your buff is broadsides, it is not worth hitting Sinister Strike again. At that point, it is worth just re-rolling roll the bones at 5 common points. If you find yourself at 5 common points and your buff is True Bearing, feel free to re-roll at 5 common points. True Bearing provides 0 DPS gain for any of your Sinister Strikes. So if you have True Bearing and 5 common points, feel free to re-roll out of True Bearing ASAP. If you find yourself at 5 common points and you no longer have any Snake Eyes buffs available, feel free to re-roll at 5 common points. So then the playstyle comes to, you're trying to build common points, and usually you'll get a decent setup in an opener. Your opener is going to look kind of like this. You'll of course have all the pots and all the flasks and all the pans available at the start. Adrenaline rush and then go right into stealth before you hit the boss, and hit ambush. Afterwards, use blade rush if you talented into that one. If you haven't, forget about that part completely. Then vanish, ambush again, you should have 4 common points. Sinister Strike until you have 6 common points, and then roll the bones. From there on, you continue into your rotation. From this point on, you will be doing a builder rotation until a finisher. So first of all, use pistol shot, opportunity proc as soon as it's available. Try to use that one early, not towards the end. You're trying to finish off at about 5 to 6 common points. If 5 is available, that's perfectly fine. If you have deadly precision as a buff, try to use between the eyes if that is available. Outside of that, just use dispatch. From there on, you're going back to the building rotation. When you go back to the building rotation, you're trying to get yourself to as close to as 6 common points as possible. As per the first one, try to use your pistol shots ahead of time, try to use them early. And if you find yourself with any of the conditions we talked about before, where it's fine to reroll for a 5 buff, then go for it. But generally you will want to try to get towards 6 buff if ever available. And then you use roll the bones, and then from there, roll the bones will dictate your playstyle by a little bit. Then back to building, and then you'll get your finisher done, then back to building, and then roll the bones. And then you have this cycle where you're trying to maintain a buff for your Sinister Strike, while also finding moments to dispatch and between the eyes the enemy for extra damage. I would have to say this is by far probably one of the most difficult rotations I have ever had to execute. It took me a little bit of time and a lot of practice. One of the things that I will tell you guys as you're trying this kind of build, don't feel completely just discouraged by watching your damage meter the whole time. Part of what I noticed with this kind of playstyle is your damage is going to have ups and downs. It's going to have a lot of dips up and dips down, and most of it you can't really control. Sometimes you'll be able to get a nice setup for your roll of the bones, and then your synth strikes will simply just pump out damage. Maybe you'll get yourself deadly precision, so everything is critting. Maybe your trinkets are proccing. Maybe you'll line up a nice adrenaline rush in there in between of it all. It's gonna be a little bit difficult to get used to. But after playing with this build for a little bit, I feel like it is fairly competitive. I do want to try it a couple more times. I found a lot of success with this build in particular, specifically in PvP. The amount of random ass damage you can kind of throw out at an enemy is actually surprising. So this build does have merit. It just takes a little bit of time to get used to. So I hope you guys enjoyed this build. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you guys have any fun with this build whatsoever. I've been playing it literally all day, and it feels like I still need to get more muscle memory into this type of play style to figure out how to play it optimally. But what I had to do to make this build happen is first I was simming my character, and then I had to go into raid bots, into the details, the nitty-gritty details of what the rotation is from the sims. I didn't get this build from any information from anybody else. I literally had to look at the sims themselves, look at the rotation, and figure out what are the conditions for this build and try it out. It's a lot of trial and failure, but there's a possibility that this build could be a viable alternative to the Deadshot build. I guess we'll see on Tuesday, but this is the build that I've been messing with. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this build, and if you guys have any other builds you want me to go over for Subtlety or Assassination, maybe any kind of Azeroth traits you guys are just jonesing for me to check out, let me know in the comments below, and I would love to make a video on those. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.